Inspiration. Lord, in this time we now share together, open up all our hearts to whatever it is that you want to speak to us about. May I find the words that you want me to say. May each one of you open your heart to hear the message that Jesus wants to you to hear. And we make this prayer in Christ our Lord. Amen. Working before, but it's not working now.
I just wanted to try and show you my shirt.
The wonderful thing about technology, somebody said that the more marvellous technology gets, the more dangerous it becomes. You don't have to think of conquering the atom or things like that. And I'm one of a generation, of course, that was sort of pre-computer. So I've learned the basics of it. But once we get into this, hooray, God be praised. Okay. All right. Now, is this familiar to any of you? Have you ever experienced this in your life? You know that sometimes you go through a period and you think, my God, what's going on? I don't know where I am, and I've lost the vision, and I wonder what's happening. So I want to reflect upon this, and we'll look at the passage from which this comes, because it's quite an important passage in Matthew's Gospel. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and precede him to the other side. The boat, already a few miles offshore, was being tossed about by the waves, for the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, he came toward them, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and they cried out in fear. At once Jesus spoke to them. Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. Peter said to him in reply, Lord, if it is you, command me to walk to you on the water. He said, come. Peter got out of the boat and began to walk on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, and said to him, O ye of little faith, why did you doubt? After that, he got into the boat, and the wind had died down. Now this is an extraordinary personal story about Peter, but I also want to say, because of where it is in the Gospel, it's actually got a much deeper meaning as well too. And it's about the church. See, if we look at this particular story, there's things that make us think a little bit. Here are some of them. Oh, come on to that in a moment. First of all, these were fishermen. They were used to storms. They were used to going out to the Sea of Galilee. They were competent. They would have managed. But somehow that whole thing about fear and the sea and seeing Jesus totally disorients them. Now what we know is that when the story was written, Matthew had already seen some of the tensions and problems in the church that Father Tom talked about in his first talk. And one of the things that was very, very clear was division and problems in the church. And right from the very beginning of the Gospels, we actually see that this story is interpreted as a story of the church as well. And you might know that one of the big images for the church throughout the ages, beginning with the earliest fathers and writers on the church, is it's a boat on the sea. And the sea is stormy, and at times the people lose hope, and they begin to think it's going down and we're in a bad situation. And what I want to say today, if we're really honest, is that most of us can see that in some ways the church seems to be in a very difficult time. First of all, congregations are diminishing. You know, lack of young people, lack of vocations. At the very top of the church, we seem to have dissensions, where some senior cardinals are calling the Pope a liar, where some people are saying there's a division of vision between the present Pope and the Pope who's still living in Rome, the past Pope. Now, all of these can seem to us to create a whole sense of doubt and problem for us, and we think, where is the church going? Are we struggling? Are we in terrible times of displacement and the possibility of foundering and sinking? Well, one of the things I want you to reflect on is if you think in your own life, and then I'm going to look at the life of the church, there have always been times where the church has been sometimes in dire straits, that the waves have been thundering and people have thought we are sinking. And yet out of that, extraordinarily amazing things have come. Just the funny aside on that is that, looking back on my own life, I can see that some of the times I had to struggle most and was presented with very big challenges were precisely the things that God used to make me grow and to make me the man I am today. I think when I was a young callow priest and launched onto boarding school with all these kids who were there, and they used to eat priests for breakfast, you know, that was their favourite thing. Okay, and I remember going to the school and the Dean of Studies said to me, now, this year you'll be teaching fourth form geography. And I said, I've never done geography in my life. He said, don't worry, they're pretty dumb, they're all off farm, so they don't know much. That's what he said. He said, if you're 2 pages ahead of the textbook, you'll be okay. Well, you know how I felt as a teacher? Well, the amazing thing was that was extraordinary. I got so much out of teaching that, and I did learn so much. And it was probably the first plank that was created in the thing that was to be my passion in life later on, which was how God's love of this world is reflected in the physical world we live in. Now, the other funny thing is that of all the subjects I was asked to teach at school, I taught maths, I taught chemistry, I taught French, I taught Latin, I taught English, I taught RE, I even think I taught commercial practice. Many of these things I knew very little about. But the one subject I never taught at school was history. And I never took it at school, I never taught it. Now the irony is that I actually did a master's degree in history. It was incredibly important because one of the things it taught me was when we look at our own history, but especially the history of the church, we realise that the church has come through some really low times. I want to just have a digression for a few minutes to tell you about these, because I think when we look at what the church has passed through and what came out of them, I think suddenly our whole vision changes dramatically. Now, I just want to have a few minutes. If you haven't heard this story before, be prepared to be shocked, because it is shocking. In the 9th and 10th century, especially the papacy in Rome, was in really low times. It was controlled by a powerful group of families who all contended to put their own candidate in as pope. Often these people were totally unworthy, and they did some pretty terrible things. I'm just going to mention 2 of them, because if you think we've got problems now, brother, I tell you, we are safe compared to this lot. Okay. Stephen VI, okay, he's very interesting. We don't know exactly why he became pope, except one of the powerful nobles in Rome actually got put in there. Now, he was so insecure and so terrified of criticism that what he did was, one of the factions had been for the Pope that was 2 before him. He was so terrified of their criticism that what he did was, this Pope had died, he had the body disinterred. He brought the body into the papal chambers where they have their meetings, He put him in robes, tied the body, the throne, and he had a court-martial of him, accused him of heresy, and he was accused of heresy and found guilty. He then reburied the body. He was so scared the opposition were going to dig it up again, he threw the body into the Tiber. Okay, so that's the delightful person, Stephen VI. Okay. And here's one, about 50 or 60 years later, who was even worse. John XII his morality and immorality was legend at the time. He seemed to be most interested in hunting and war, and he actually went to war in the front of the soldiers. And in the end, it became so bad that the great Roman the first great Roman emperor, Otto I, came down and deposed him and put his own man in. Now, the extraordinary thing about this, though, is that all the time this was happening, something was brewing in the church. That some purification, some deep, deep search was going on. Now, often, particularly Protestant people will talk about the Reformation as what happened with Luther and the others in the 16th century is that great Reformation. But I think lots of scholars would say now, in fact, what happened after these dark, dark times was possibly one of the most dramatic reformations in the whole history of the church. During the 10th century, for example, the monasteries that were living out the rule of St. Benedict, starting with Cluny, began to found houses all over Europe, and there were about 300 of them by the turn of the century. And in them a real holiness was beginning to emerge. And the next thing that happened was the extraordinary story of the Cistercians. And they had begun to be an order that was based on prayer and discipline and teaching. And one of the remarkable people that came to them was Bernard. Now, Bernard is an amazing person because as a young man, he was a noble. And he brought about 20 young men with him to the Abbey of Citeaux. And after about 4 years, it had so increased that they went off and started another abbey. And by the end of that century, they were all through England and most of Europe. And their holiness and their transformation of life began to transform the entire church. And out of that came a whole lot of new movements. See, one of the extraordinary things about Bernard was that he was a transitional man. He was a noble. He had contact with ordinary people. He was deeply spiritual. He was a mystic. He was a great writer. And also he intervened. He helped the popes and he wrote letters and he had huge influence. And he made the transition into the city. And out of that came the great new things that were to emerge in the 11th and 12th centuries, like the Catholic universities like Paris. Now, much of what we owe today in our Western world, although it's been very secularised, the dignity of the individual human person, the rule of law, the international aspect of law, many of these things are products of the Catholic universities of Europe. And that is so often forgotten. So that's the first point I want to make, that if we look back at some of the darkest periods of the church, like the 10th century, afterwards, totally unheralded, utterly unexpected, something arises that nobody could have expected. Now, I want to move on to the French Revolution that's been mentioned earlier this morning because, in fact, believe it or not, the French Revolution has had an incredibly powerful impact on our church here in New Zealand. And we can learn so much of what happened during that time. And the other amazing thing is God works this way. Of course, tomorrow, as you know, is Bastille Day, the day for the storming of the Bastille. And the next year, in the assembly there, we had this very dramatic incident where many of the people from the regions came together in assembly to try and change the face of France. Now, as part of that, what they wanted was to write a civil constitution. And when you hear the terms of this constitution, you can see why the church, that was so dramatic and purging and terrible for the church. First of all, they wanted to take the power of appointing bishops away from the Pope and make it the state's prerogative. They also wanted all priests to be elected by everybody. So that was everybody, not just from the parishes, but Protestants and Jews, everybody. And after a while, especially once the Jacobins came to power the next year, there was terrible pressure on priests to marry. And those who resisted the civil constitution, for example, in Paris, there were about 260 of them executed. And then as the Jacobin terror got deeper and deeper, it began to do profound things to the church. So, for example, all Sundays were abolished. Their attempt to rewrite the whole history was to change all the names, to make the number of days, weeks disappear, feast days disappeared. Children, instead of being called after saints, were called after the names of flowers and vegetables. Now, doesn't that sound a little familiar today? When you meet some of these children with some of these wonderful names you get now. So, in fact, the church came into terrible strife. And originally, when the civil constitution was passed, the idea was to reform the 140 departments of France down to about 80. And it was necessary because one of the things that had happened in France was a lot of the land and the wealth had gone to nobilities and had been inherited by the church. And you'll be delighted to hear that the church and the nobility paid no taxes, none at all. So at that stage, about 95% of France was still peasants, and they had to pay for everything. And so they wanted things to be changed. So the first assembly, in fact, about 6 bishops out of the 30 who were there voted in favour of this constitution, and about half the priests voted in favour. But after that, the revolution became more and more bloody, more and more repressive, more and more terrible. So what happened was that in 1795, Napoleon came along, and he put down the worst of the Jacobins, but he began to be pretty dramatic in the church too. And he wanted very much to control it in his own name. And some of the things he did were very drastic. One of the things he did was to negotiate very hard terms with the new Pope, Pius VII. So Pius came to Paris for the coronation when Napoleon made himself the emperor. But Napoleon crowned himself, he didn't need the Pope to do it. And later on, he negotiated very tough terms with the Pope. So if the Pope wanted a bishop, the Pope could nominate, but Napoleon could turn it down. And the same for all the priests. All the priests could be put down. And from about 1797, it became even more drastic. Thousands and thousands of priests were taken out of rural parishes and taken to seaports like Le Havre. And they were going to be put on boats to take to the penal colonies, to Devil's Island, to Guyana, a terrible place. Now, because the ports were being sealed off by the English at wartime, many priests, thousands of them, actually died on these terrible galleys. And those who actually got to Guyana, about 250, 120 of them died in the first year from yellow fever, terrible things like that. So what I want you to see is that the church at this time, the French Revolution, went through a terrible time of purgation, of suffering, of enormous persecution. Absolutely terrible. But what was happening at this time? Yeah. There we go. One of the amazing things that happened is in the very years, the 10 years, the first years of the Revolution, a whole lot of congregations quietly were born. They were mainly women's and sisters' congregations. There were 13 of them founded in that 10 years. One of them was the Sisters of St. Joseph of Cluny, which we know here in New Zealand. But if you have a look at what happened after the French Revolution, look at this amazing picture. Here are all the societies, the religious societies, that were founded at this time. Okay, and if you look at those religious congregations, something should strike you very, very powerfully. You want to see what it is? They all work in New Zealand. So the amazing thing about it is, although we consider the origin of our church in New Zealand is very much to do with the English and Irish settlers, in fact, a lot of the spirituality, a lot of the memories, a lot of the shape of the church was dictated by these congregations, who were the first teachers and the organisers, who looked after the hospitals, who looked after children, who looked after families. Many of the priests became Irish priests, but this was the picture. So in all, you had 3 groups of brothers, 9 groups of priests, and 28 sisters' congregations, all founded in this time of terrible terror and despair. And what was worse in the church was that a lot of conflict was happening within the church for various reasons. And I want to look at this fairly quickly. I want to look at our own founder, Jean-Claude Collin. He's a fascinating person. See, it's very interesting. You see, he was born the very first year of the assembly. And when he was raised, his parents were part of the church that resisted the civil constitution. And his parents had to hide in the hills and keep away their family from the villages because they were being persecuted. In fact, they both died fairly young. He was raised by an auntie. And so that memory was very, very powerful for him. As a seminarian, when he was in Lyon, Lyons, it was a time of incredible divisions because Napoleon had forced a lot of the people of the church out of favour. He had lost favour because he very much did some things which were very antipathetic to people of the church. One of the things he did was he imprisoned Pope Pius for 5 years just outside Paris, and he took over the papal territories in Italy. Many people still supported him, and some supported the church that had been constitutionally founded. However, he was defeated at the Battle of Waterloo, but in those years, 1814 to 15, there was terrible division in France. You had some people who wanted to go back to the old church that had been there before the Revolution. You had some people who wanted to have a constitutional monarchy like England. And there were other people who said, no, we need something quite different in the church. And what happened was that after the Restoration, King Louis XVI came onto the throne. Now, many of the church people then went out to these areas where there had been nobody, no priests in many country areas for 30 years or so. A lot of the property had been taken over by just lay people. And in 30 years, the level of masses, of catechesis, of all that had suffered terribly. Now, many of these people had big missions in these areas, and what they wanted to do was to restamp the church in the old model and make it as it had been before the revolution. And so what they did was they went to these places and they erected big missionary crosses, iron crosses. They sometimes cut down the tree of liberty, which had been planted at the time of the revolution. And they had burnings of the books of the French encyclopedists, people like Diderot and Voltaire and those sorts of people. And they were very, very strict in wanting to get the property of the church back. And so for many people, they actually refused them absolution and confession. They said, unless you give us back the property, you don't get forgiven. So it was a very, very tough time. Now, when Father Colin sent his missionaries out into the BUGEY, he elected to work in an area which is not far away from La Vala, a bit further away, which Brother Peter mentioned. Very poor area. There had been priests there for years and years, and many of the people were very far away from the church. Now, he sent out his little groups of people, and what he said to them was, people who don't come to the mission, don't get up and denounce them, as the other missionaries were doing. Make excuses for them. Try and make it easy for them to change their minds. He said, don't call yourselves missionaries as if you are the powerful ones coming to correct everything. Just say, we're catechists. We're to help you with this new part of the church. And later on, when he reflected about what happened there, Colin came out with, in our rule, 3 very famous no's. And I think in terms of what the church has been through today, they are very significant. No to power. In other words, you are not to assume that you are the people who are in control. It's not for you to say, you must do that. We will only give you grace if you conform to what we want. He said, we don't want that power. Let us learn from the mistakes we have made. No to pride. If you are in grace, it's a gift of God. It's nothing you're responsible for. We are not the holy ones. We are not the ones who bear God's grace. We are really inviting you to come into that place once again. And no to greed. He said, look at what greed has done to the church. Look what happened when we were wealthy, when we had power, when we had control. What happened? What happened? And they realised what had happened. Now what happened, as Colin reflected on that, he then began to look at, perhaps, if we want to learn how not to be powerful, how not to be proudful, how not to be wanting money all the time, perhaps we need to go back to one of the deepest images which we have in the Gospels, which is the image of Mary. And one of the things that Colin did, he really was, he was a very shy, introvert and insecure young man as a young priest. And yet as he reflected on things, and particularly as he learned with the ordinary people in Sudan where he worked, it's like an extraordinary, amazing change came over him. And one of the things he reflected on was what he called the work of Mary and the role of Mary. You might know, but this year, the Pope has instituted a new feast day. It's been in the church, but it's just become a feast day, Mary, Mother of the Church. Well, the interesting thing was that John Colin had this terrific insight over 150 years ago, 200 years ago. He realised, and this was his insight, that after Jesus had gone, and the disciples were all gathered and they were trying to discover from the life of Jesus how we needed to change. Who was there in the midst of them? Mary. Who was the one who recalled so much of what Jesus had been and what his development had happened in her? Mary. Who was the one who gave them a sense of unity? And who was the one that St. John put under the cross to say to the whole church, in fact, this is your mother? In other words, he realised that Mary had a central role in the church, and it was not a role of power, it was not a role of prestige. She had no ordination, she had no official title, she had no apparent role, and yet he saw that in fact she had a remarkable role. And as he thought about this, he looked at the gospel, and he looked at some of these gospel scenes I'm going to talk about now. Now, one we can talk about, which I really love, is the marriage feast at Cana. Now, this is a wonderful picture. It probably wasn't like that at all. There's some features there of a Jewish meal, but some of them are not true at all. They wouldn't have sat around a table like that at all. However, the bride and groom, the Jewish thing, they were a king and queen, and you see the water jars in the front, okay, and they're big, probably even bigger than that. Now, the first thing about this particular scene, okay, and just have a look at it. Look. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine ran short, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, how does this concern affect me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for Jews' ceremonial washings, each holding 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told them, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Draw some out now and take that to the head waiter." So they took it, and when the head waiter tasted the water that had become wine, without knowing where it came from, although the servants had drawn the water knew, the head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves good wines first, and then when people have drunk freely, an inferior one, but you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this at the beginning of the signs in Galilee, and so revealed his glory, and his disciples began to believe in him. Now, I want to mention some very important points about that story, which I think has enormous relevance to the church today and how we need to be church in New Zealand. First of all, Colin thought about the work of Mary, and he said Mary is actually the first disciple. But how did she work as a disciple? What was unique about what she did? And this is some of the points which come out. She is a guest. She's not the boss. She's not in command. She's not firing and hiring people. She's there, as I think Peter says in one of his letters, as a pilgrim and traveller in the land. She knows that she's only there for some time. God has given her a unique role, but she is a guest. She's not the one who does the work. What does she do? First of all, she's like many women. She notices what the situation is and what the difficulties are before any of the guys have even twigged to it, okay? So she sees that this young couple are running out of wine. Now, that's really bad at a Jewish wedding, because a Jewish wedding, in those times, could last 4 or 5 days. And people really enjoyed the wine. Now, if you've got Jesus and a whole lot of disciples arriving, suddenly what seems to be plenty of wine is no longer plenty of wine. And that is a major crisis in a society where hospitality is one of the great, great virtues. And so you have to give hospitality. And this was going to be an enormous problem for the young couple. Mary sees this before anybody else has, because she has eyes for other people. She sees what the problems are. Her heart is open to other people. So what does she do? She doesn't say to Jesus, look, do this, you've got to work a miracle, I want you to do this. All she does is she brings it to the attention of her son. And she trusts in him because she knows that he has some great power and some great vision, and that somehow he will fix this. And what John says this, of course, is very interesting. Jesus' reply about my hour has not yet come. Now, in the Gospel of John, the hour, of course, always refers to Jesus' death and suffering and then resurrection. So what John is saying through Jesus is, if you ask me to do this, you are launching me onto a course that is going to end in my death. And what mother could easily do that? But she just said, do whatever he tells you. She just trusts utterly and totally in where Jesus is going to go. And of course, where is Jesus going to go? He's going to go to the cross, where everything seems lost and despaired and hopeless, and everything seems to have failed. And yet, in the Gospel of John, of course, the cross is Jesus' greatest triumph. It leads to his enthronement and to his rising in power. Now, the other interesting thing, and I want to come back to the original picture I started with, is for the Jews, creation came out in what's called toho wa'ohu, which is a phrase which means utter chaos. And God breathed on the waters, and out of that chaos, God brought creation. Now, this passage, if you know a little bit about the scripture, is actually full of references to a new creation. Now, it begins by saying, on the third day. Now, you've probably heard that lots and lots of times. Have you ever wondered, what's one, what's two? Why is it the third day? Because the third day is the day of resurrection. That's when a whole new creation comes about. There are 6 stone jars. There are 6 days of creation, and God rests on the 7th. Okay? And those stone jars are full of water. Now, each one of them has about 20 or 30 gallons. So they're big, big jars. So you've got about 150 gallons of prime vint wine. Okay? I think we could all get pretty happy on that, okay? Even in this crowd, 150 gallons, we'd do well on it, okay? So, but the interesting thing, of course, is again the symbolism. In the Old Testament, water was used for the law, okay? It was a symbol of purification and needing to be washed and cleansed. Exactly the things that Father Tom was talking about. What is wine? It's a symbol of the spirit, of new life, of new hope, of new energy, of a totally new vision. Now, the other point that's very important is that who actually does this work? And again, this comes down to this whole business, which again is very, very much about what Father Thomas talked about. It's the servants who do the work. Jesus is there. Mary can see, and Jesus is the one who transforms. But who brings the jars? Who fills them up with water? Who is there to provide? It's you. It's the people of the church. We priests are only here because you are the people who bring the material to be transformed. And if there's any power we are given, it's only because you as a people enable us to be enablers. And so I want to come back to this chief point I want to make and reformulate some of the things I've said already. We can think in the church we're in a bad time, we're in a tough time. The first point I wanted to make is this. The church has always been a church of sinners. It's because Jesus is our redemption through the Eucharist. He constantly brings hope of new life to us that we can hope to change. Sometimes as a church we've got pretty low, but nowhere near as bad as it has been in some times. And the point I wanted to make through the two early examples I gave you was in the 9th and 10th centuries and at the time of the French Revolution, nobody would have dreamed for a second about what was going to happen. The new wine, the new creation, the new hope. In other words, we don't have the vision. What are we called to be? We're called to be like Peter. We're called to keep our eyes on Jesus. He is the one who transforms the church. He is the one who changes the water into wine. What we are is we are the servants. We have to bring the people. We have to create an environment in which we see what needs to be done. And how do we do that? We look at the model of Mary, what she was in the infant church. And she was not powerful. She was not a person who called all the shots. She was a person of deep, deep prayer and vision. She was a person who seen what needed to be done, and she called Jesus to do it. And she knew that that entailed death, but new life came from it. So what I'm really saying to you is that in some ways we are in a time in the church in which there is some dying, and we don't know how much that dying will be, because we still have some great trials to go through. But we must not allow our eyes to stray from Jesus. Once we start looking down at the waves and the trouble, we tend to lose focus. We have to be like Mary. We have to see, Lord, what is it you want me to do? Do whatever he tells you. And what I'm going to go on to tomorrow is to look at the church in New Zealand, perhaps look at a few things we might do better, like Mary, which I hope will be the beginning of new life. So let's pray for this, and let's take a wee bit of break now. So think about these things, and tomorrow hopefully I'll follow this up more practically. God bless you all.